Hello, my name is Matthew Deutsch, and I'm a professional business plan writer. I've been writing business plans professionally for the past 20 years, and this is part of an ongoing video series I'm developing discussing the startup of specific types of businesses. And I focus very heavily on pack and ship stores, and there's a good reason for that. It's one of my favorite businesses that I always see that someone is trying to develop. They can be incredibly profitable, they're low risk, they generate recurring income from mailbox rentals. If you take a look at some of my other videos regarding pack and ship stores, this is something that I focus on constantly, especially if you're looking to raise capital for your pack and ship store, whether it's an SBA loan or a conventional business loan. One of the things I will always focus on heavily is the recurring income associated with these businesses. And certainly I put the links to the other videos down below if you want to take a look. But today's topic is going to focus specifically on the startup costs associated with a pack and ship store. And the answer is, how much, the question is, how much does it cost to start? And the answer generally is not much. On the very low end, it's around $40,000. On the very high end, especially if you're operating within a city, it could go as high as around $200,000 to $250,000, depending on the build-out costs. And I'm just going to go through sort of what the expenses are and sort of the range of what the cost would be. And actually, if you see me looking down, I'm just taking a look at the list here. Rent and utility deposits is always the first one. Typically, you could expect 3 months of those expenditures to be required as deposits. This can vary a little bit depending on the landlord, but generally speaking, it's first, last, and security. Certain landlords may require 4 months, but that's a little bit unusual. So basically, if you're taking a look at any specific facility, and let's just say it costs $2,000 a month to lease, with another $500 a month of utility costs, you could expect that expenditure would be roughly around $7,500. And again, basically take what those costs are going to be and times by 3 or 4, and that'll give you sort of the range of what that expense will be. From an inventory standpoint, and again, one of the reasons why I like these businesses so much is that they don't require much inventory at all. Packing peanuts, tape, bubble wrap, cardboard boxes, and these can be acquired very inexpensively. If you're starting in a smaller area, you might not need that much. If you're going to be in a busier city, you might want to have more inventory on the hand. But typically, this can range anywhere from $1,500 up to $5,000, which is on the super high end of things for inventory acquisitions. Computer and point of sale equipment. This is probably one of the larger expenses, or should I say, this is one of the larger expenses associated with starting a pack and ship store. Most of the time, 2 to 3 computers will do it. You'll need to have someone network them together, and also you're going to need to acquire the appropriate point of sale software that allow you to connect with varying shipping carriers such as UPS, FedEx, DHL, that'll connect you so that you can print the labels and have it input into their system. Generally speaking, these costs range from $2,500 to $7,500. The costs have actually gone down over the years with so much competition for point of sale systems. These prices have decreased substantially. Many years ago, the cost of getting the software that computes all of this was very expensive. But now, again, a $2,500 to $7,500 range is appropriate in terms of your technology needs. General furniture, fixtures, and equipment, also not too big of a startup cost. You need to pack an area of tables, chairs, and shelving, as well as the little mailboxes that people have. It should be noted, you can still operate by accepting mail from people without necessarily having those small mailboxes. You can simply assign an individual, whether it's an individual or a business, just a number that they can use when they're using your street address to receive something. But most pack and ship stores do have them. And typically, in terms of furniture, fixtures, and equipment, this ranges anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. Again, nothing outside of a retail counter, and all of what I just described is really required to effectively operate one of these businesses. Signage, this can vary as well. If you're going to have a neon sign or a lighted sign, or if you're just going to have sort of a static sign, you can expect anywhere from $2,500 to $7,500 for a standard sign, especially if it's going to be lighted. Then you're looking at the higher end of things. If you're just going to have standard lettering outside of a retail facility, it's going to be in that $2,500 to $3,000 range to have that produced. Build-out costs. This can vary significantly. The local pack and ship store I use is just one room with just shelving in the back, and they have some tables for doing the packaging. Basically, it was just 4 walls that had to be put up. So having with the appropriate electrical and wiring associated. But generally speaking, on the very low end, you can estimate, $10,000 of build out costs. If you're in a fancier retail area, and you may have these costs go somewhat higher, but generally speaking, it's going to be in the $50,000 to $100,000 range, especially if you're going for a much higher end build out, or if the property needs a substantial amount of work before it can be used as a pack and ship store. Then those will be those higher costs. Permits, that runs anywhere from $500 to $2,500 depending on your state. You'll need a sales tax license, a general business license. One of the things I would recommend is that you coordinate those efforts with an attorney. They'll be able to let you know exactly what permits and licenses you'll need to provide your services. Legal costs, pretty straightforward. Beyond things like incorporation or establishing an LLC with an operating agreement, you'll need to have some just basic contracts issued, especially as it relates to discussing liability that may occur during the shipping process. If you see the forms, they get printed out automatically and you sign on the bottom, but you should have an attorney work with you on that. They'll also be able to address other legal matters that are part and parcel with owning any business. And again, a pack and ship store is a pretty straightforward retail business, so there isn't too much legal complexity from that standpoint. Initial marketing. This is an incredibly important part of starting any pack and ship store. Beyond just finding an appropriate location that has good signage so that people can see it as they go about their day, conducting direct outreach with small-scale entrepreneurs in the area, home-based businesses that want to rent a mailbox, but mainly because they don't want to use their home address. The scale of the marketing, it can range. On the low end, I estimated around $5,000. At the high end, around $10,000, especially if you're in a population-dense area. The reason why this can be somewhat expensive is that many starting pack and ship stores will require mailing lists of businesses that are in their area, including home-based businesses. And you can work with any local or regional marketing or advertising firm to acquire these lists. You can send mailers that just showcase, that discuss your grand opening, especially listing the services related to mailbox services, printing. A lot of times there'll be direct outreach with real estate brokerages and real estate agents that need ongoing printed materials, restaurants as well, if they're distributing menus. If you're offering copying services, this is again another very high margin revenue center for your business. So having that sort of $5,000 to $10,000 budget is appropriate. You can also just conduct a lot of direct outreach on your own as well. And then the final one is working capital. When I write a business plan or if someone's asking me to estimate the startup costs, I typically like to allocate it at around 6 months of expenses. This includes rent, utilities, payroll, marketing, and any type of technology-related fees. For most pack and ship stores, they're very heavily owner-operated businesses, so you don't necessarily have to have a huge payroll, and a lot of times the owner, especially for the first year or two, will basically just work on their own without either taking a formal salary or just a minimal formal salary while the business expands before bringing people on. And so this calculation can vary substantially. If your monthly expenses are going to be around $5,000, then you should have around $30,000 in cash on hand to support the business as it reaches profitability. Pack and ship stores typically reach profitability pretty quickly. It's a service-based business. Once you build an ongoing clientele, especially for each of your mailbox rentals, then that's when you become quite profitable. If you're in major city where you're going to have a huge amount of expenses, rent, you may even want to allocate a little bit more for working capital beyond that 6 months just to make sure you hit that point of profitability pretty quickly. So again, all told, low end $40,000 to $50,000, high end $200,000 to $250,000 would be the startup estimate. If you're struggling to figure this out, this is what I do for a living. And I put a link to my website if you're in need of a business plan. Again, especially if you're looking to raise capital, feel free to reach us anytime. There's never any charge for any consultation. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have. But the way that I always go about doing these startup costs, I focus very heavily on the market that my client is operating in. I take a look at things like median household income, per square foot retail pricing for a mid-range location, as well as the scope and scale of the facility, as well as what the cost for payroll would be among potential employees that work at the business. So if you have any questions of that nature, feel free to reach out. The link is down below. There's also a link to a sample business plan specific for a pack and ship store. I don't know if I mentioned that at the start of the video. And again, thank you very much for taking a look. Take care.